Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. It is the Hurling semi-final preview show. Hope everyone's keeping well. Hope everyone's doing well. The form is good and all the rest. And joined by Matthew Hurley here from the Gaelic Statsman podcast for a preview and for some predictions for this weekend's All-Ireland Hurling semi-finals. And I suppose it's only fitting. Dublin are playing Cork. Had to get Matthew on to help discuss and break down this game and everything else. And obviously we will come on to Kilkenny and Tipperary as well. But Matthew, you're all set, and as you were telling me off air there, you're all set for Saturday.
Yeah, exactly. So thanks for having me on again, Aaron. Yeah, I suppose I've been trying to push the narrative on my podcast about welcoming you on about talking about Cork and Dublin and the football, and even Seamus himself. But now you're welcoming me on your podcast, saying that Dublin is now a hurling county. So so look, we'll see what happens. It's quite fitting actually. Whenever I've invited you guys on, we're clear underdogs in the football, and then when you invite me on during the hurling, Cork are clear favourites. But to be fair, jokes aside, look, I think Cork are going expected to win. Look, that's not no disrespect to Dublin. Dublin haven't beaten Cork in the championship since 1927. They haven't got to an All-Ireland final since 1961. Cork have just a better head-to-head record than Dublin, and they're odds-on favourites to win the All-Ireland. That's just the way it is at this present moment of time. But did a bit of digging on Dublin's stats over recent games, and since last year's game in Thurles, they've actually improved shooting-wise, and Cork have not hit the heights this year. I will say on Munster, look, we won the Munster Championship. I don't think we performed to our utmost ability, which is a concern for Pat Ryan's team, I'd imagine as well. And I think the main thing for Pat and the players is they have to be on it on the word go. If they're not on it, just like Limerick were in the quarter-final, Dublin could be there to take an opportunity. And Cork have to realise that. They're in a battle on Saturday. They can't let it slip away. They can't take Dublin easily. Dublin are the semi-final on merit. They have to go for it now on Saturday. No second chances now. So look, it should be an interesting game on Saturday, Aaron. And yeah, I suppose we're enemies, I suppose, for a day.
Absolutely, yeah. What's the buzz like around Cork kind of leading up to the All-Ireland semi-final? Or what's it even been like seeing Dublin and seeing what they did versus Limerick? Because obviously it was, I think most Cork fans after beating Limerick in the Munster final were thinking, right, well, we've beaten them on this penalty shootout. We're going to have to probably take them down again. And then lo and behold, they've been knocked out by Dublin, and it's completely changed the trajectory. Like, you would have been playing Tipperary this weekend, and Limerick would have been playing Kilkenny with repeat parents and everything else. So yeah, kind of unusual that it's ended up this way with Dublin obviously winning the game. So what's the feeling like around the county in terms of playing the Dubs in Croke Park this weekend?
Initially, after the Limerick game, I was sitting. Obviously, Cork were playing Dublin football after the Limerick and Dublin game, but distinctly after the hurling quarter-final, a few Cork lads beside me were saying, we have to win it now. We have to win it outright. Limerick are gone. We have to do it now. There's no second chances here. If we don't do it this year, there's probably no hope in the next few years, because Limerick will be back, I would imagine. Tipperary are going to bound to improve with the underage talent there. Clare will be much better next year, I'd imagine. Waterford, the exuberance of young talent there in the Déise County. So look, there is going to be teams that are going to improve next year, and Cork have to take their chance there if they are to threaten this Dublin team. But then again, it's hard to know really. Some Cork fans or Cork people in the media are actually saying, look, Dublin are still going to be a difficult game. Obviously, one piece during the week saying that, look, if Cork don't take Dublin seriously, the thing is, let's call a spade a spade. Dublin performed absolutely outstanding against Limerick, but Limerick at stages didn't take Dublin seriously. For example, I've never seen Sean Finn, a cornerback, so slow to get to a ball. I've never seen Cian Lynch look so lethargic up front. I've never seen Garrod Haggerty get utterly dominated around the middle. Like, those sorts of events were just so surreal to watch. And especially watching it live in the flesh. Like, that was just incredible in its own right. So look, the key for Cork, they have to be honest, simple as that. And I don't think, like, I look at all the games in the championship from a Cork point of view, they've only performed to their utmost ability in one half of hurling, and that was against Clare in the first half. The rest of them, the second half, were very poor in that game. Tipperary, I know they're the semi-final this weekend, and they merit that place, obviously, but the game was over before it even started, but the Darren McCarthy red card, so I can't really judge it by that. The Limerick game wasn't great. Let's call a spade, the TUS Gaelic grounds. The Waterford game, we hit 17 wides, and Limerick, even though we beat them on penalties in, a sea of red flocking the pitch in the Gaelic grounds, we still had 17 wides that night. We still had aspects of our play that we have to improve on, simple as that. So we're coming into a situation where Cork haven't performed to high levels of ability yet in terms of shooting. Like, I think Cork's average miss or wide count, I think, is about 16 or 17 per game, whereas Dublin is 12.75. When you look at Dublin against Cork last year, they had 18 misses in Thurles, and that cost them dearly, with a lot of misses going down the home stretch especially. But this year, I don't know what it is. Neil O'Callaghan's come in and he's just changed the whole mentality around Dublin hurling, and not just the shooting, not just kind of the perfectionism and things like that, the intensity as well. And I've seen it firsthand, obviously, with Nafina. Obviously, Nafina beating Stars in the All-Ireland final. I have seen that he drives a team on to such high levels, Neil O'Callaghan. And I did mention it to Seamus before the Limerick game. Could the Nafina kind of factor play into the Limerick game? And Seamus ultimately dismissed me over that. And to be fair, like, it was a valid question to ask, because what Neil did with Nafina, he's transferred that into Dublin in spades, and that's not an easy thing to do within a matter of months. So, like, he deserves a lot of credit and fairness for coming in and doing well with Dublin in that kind of light. But from a Cork point of view, to answer your question, it's kind of a weird thing. Like, some people are saying we have to take Dublin with precaution. Other people are having kind of head losses and thinking we have to go on and win the All-Ireland now, without thinking of Kilkenny, Dublin, Tipperary, or whatever is going to come down the line later on. So, yeah, it's a lot of mixed emotions, but I think the main one, the most logical one maybe, is just not to take Dublin lightly, just like Limerick did in the quarterfinal.
Yeah, plenty of comments coming in here. Dublin is great is in the comments there, so hope you're keeping well. Hopefully Dublin is great. Come Sunday. Sean says Dublin's record against or Saturday, I should say, Dublin's record against Cork is arguably worse than Kilkenny. I can't remember the last time Dublin beat Cork in the championship. I don't know if you know.
1927.
1927. There you go. I wasn't around for that one, would you believe? But there we are. Sean says Dublin have nothing to lose at this stage, but there's no way Cork will underestimate them, given what they done to Limerick. And even though Dublin were unbelievable against Limerick, their shooting at times was way off against Limerick. If they can improve on that, then it could be a close game rather than a routine loss to Cork. And Dublin is great, says here. Cork do not play well as favourites, so we might have a chance if we start Hego on the edge of the square. And Smart Parents here says here, are you going to it? I will be. I'll be on the Nally. So, hugely looking forward. A complete sellout as well, which I was saying to you, like, before we went live. Like, I mean, that's, like, for, I know Cork have a tremendous support, and they've really, really bought into this team, and they've travelled in huge, huge numbers. And, like, I think there probably will be more Cork fans than Dublin fans there. I think you probably will outnumber us, to be honest with you. I think there'll be a loyal bunch of Dublin fans there. There'll be a lot of Dublin fans who probably jumped on the bandwagon a little bit. A lot of Dublin fans who probably follow the footballers. With the footballers gone now, you might as well get behind the hurlers. And I've no problem with any of that, to be fair. But yeah, fully sold out. It's going to be one hell of an atmosphere.
It is definitely, yeah. And will Cork probably sell out? It probably will be the case, right? Like, I seen the All-Ireland final last year, like after the All-Ireland final, actually, myself, Seamus, and Dan Casey, a few other people were actually hanging around Dublin that night after the All-Ireland final, and it was mental, full of Cork fans. And Seamus mentioned a good point to me. Imagine if Cork won that game. Like, I mean, Dublin would be overflooded with red. There was no doubt about it after that. But look, the team has been bought into, and obviously interviewed Shane Kingston for the Southern Star during the week on the Star Sport podcast, and like you could just feel the Cork team are absolutely grateful for the support they're getting at this present moment in time. Like every time, they get a score over the bar, like Decky Dalton's score against Limerick in the semi-final last year from way out the field. And the fans go ballistic. It kind of gives the players an extra kind of gear to get up on, and that is brilliant for the team in many ways as well, because like if they are struggling, the Cork fans can get behind them, and look, it is an advantage. There's no doubt about that. But I will be very interested to see how much Dublin support there will be, especially, dare I say it, especially after the footballers went out last week to Tyrone. Like, will there be a lot of bandwagoners with Dublin now saying that, okay, we're out of the football, we may as well go to the hurling now. Like, we're in the semi-final, and we've nothing to lose now. But I think, as far as I know, I think I see the tweet during the week. I think it's the first time since 1997 or sometime in around that Dublin hurlers outlasted the Dublin footballers, which is amazing. So. Yeah. This is kind of an opportunity for the Dublin fans to get behind their team. And to be fair, when Dublin were in the football in 2013, at the start of the Jim Gavin era, even then, under Dalo, Dublin still had a sizable following. I remember the hill nearly shook when David Tracy scored the goal in the semi-final in 13. So look, I think there still will be a lot of Dublin support. I feel sorry for the people that are traffic managing the whole situation, because it's going to be full of fans on Saturday now. It's going to be absolutely bouncing the stadium, and yeah, it's going to be a brilliant atmosphere.
Yeah, what time are you heading up to Croke Park at?
Well, my bus is, we have a bus full of vans. That bus I'm going on is actually leaving West Cork at 7:30 in the morning. So I don't know what time that will get to Dublin. I'd say we're thinking probably it has to stop somewhere. So I'd say between 11 and 12 possibly is when we'll get to Dublin. So we're getting there early.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like as I've said to you before, and I've said to, on the channel, I could probably leave my house now and get to Croke Park probably in about half an hour. Even walking wise, probably half an hour. Bus maybe a little bit less, depending on traffic. But no, absolutely as well. I'll be heading in early as well to soak it in, and obviously it's going to be crazy, with all the supporters and everything else. A2 says here, we're in bonus territory. We can play with no pressure or fear. Cork haven't been at their best so far this year. Underestimate us at your peril, Rebels. And Anthony says Dublin will win by 4 points. Well, there you go. That's that would be incredible if that happened. And A2 says, I expect Cork will win. They should win. There's an All-Ireland there for the taking for them. Is that the thing now, especially with Limerick being gone? Like, is it like, it feels like Cork are like overwhelming favourites? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like in previous years gone by, you would always make a case for certain teams. And look, Tipperary are a good side, Kilkenny are a good side, and look, Dublin are still there as well. And if Dublin can win this weekend, after beating Limerick and Cork, like, what would that make them going into an All-Ireland final? That'd be interesting to see. But there was already expectancy, there was already pressure on Cork to deliver. And to be fair, I think you've handled it well. I don't think the pressure has necessarily got to Cork. Look, you won the league, you won the Munster Championship. You had that blip against Limerick in Munster in the round robin, and obviously it was a penalty shootout that you needed to beat them, but at the same time you didn't lose to them in a Munster final. So there is a huge amount of expectancy with Cork, and as people have said in the past there in terms of comments, like when they're favourites, I feel like you've gotten a lot better at it, to be fair. But I do remember that game last year against Dublin, and I know, fair enough, there was maybe a bug in the camp or whatever it was within the Cork team, but Dublin gave that a fair rattle that day. And as you said, 18 wides in that match last year. So like it's, and Cork especially will not want to make the same mistakes that Limerick have made. So how do Cork ensure that doesn't happen on Saturday?
I think it genuinely goes to hard work and graft from this team. I know it's not a simplistic answer. It's not in depth or anything, but I think genuinely Cork have to be up for it from the word go. The one game we were up for, to be fair, for the word go in the championship. Well, we were up for the Clare game, but we only performed for one half, and the Tip game, but ultimately Darren McCarthy got sent off, so you can't really judge it by that, to be honest with you. But we need to kind of create, and that includes the fans as well. We probably need to create an atmosphere that will buy this Cork team on. And, everybody needs to chip in. The fans, the players, Pat Ryan on the sideline, Wayne Sherlock on the sideline. Everybody needs to chip in this. Make Dublin uncomfortable in many ways in doing this. I know it's easier said than done, but look at what happened in the Tip game when even a small thing, Sean O'Donoghue kind of, with the dark arts, kind of goading Dar McCarthy into challenges and things like that. That's what Clare were doing to us and Ennis. But like what I know Sean O'Donoghue ultimately kind of fell down kind of easily, but he was goading Dar McCarthy into it. He was saying, come on, riding him up, and then McCarthy does that and gets sent off. Ultimately, we win the game then by 15 points. Look, I'm not saying Dublin players will be, have brain losses to do that, but I'm saying Cork need to roil up for the word go. They need to get in Dublin's faces. They need to put in a load of challenges in this game as well. But what is worrying from a Cork point of view, and maybe it won't be worrying because of the context, but look at the averages on championship winning margins so far this year, the 2025 championship. Out of the 4 semi-finals, Kilkenny are top with winning margin of 9 points. Dublin second with 5, Tipperary with 4, Cork with 1. Like, we have too many tight games so far by the looks of the stats there. We did hammer Tipperary, but we got a hammering off Limerick. We drew against Clare. Waterford was too close to call, and obviously we got over the line against Limerick on penalties. Yes, there's tougher opposition teams there, but when you look at Tip's record, for example, a 4-point winning margin, even after the hammering they got against Cork, they drew against Limerick. Probably should have won that game in Thurles. Against Clare, they won that game by 3 points. They probably should have won it by more, let's be honest. And then against Waterford, they blew them out of the park. So, like, it's, I think in that kind of instance, in terms of blowing teams away, Tip have done more of that this year than Cork have. But Cork have grinded out games more, if that makes sense. But Cork can't, make this close going down home stretch, because I think if it's close going down home stretch, 1 or 2 points in it either way, I think Dublin will sense a massive chance here. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that all plays out. But I think it's as simplistic as this. I think if Cork ride up the pressure, if they get in Dublin's faces, if they get their touch right, if they get their skill execution right, I think they go and win the game. If everything goes right for Cork, I think they go on and win the game, because I just think they have better quality at this present moment in time than Dublin do at their stage in their development. But if Cork are off it, in like going for a ball. Look at Limerick, for example. Sean Finn was just so kind of lethargic and going for tackles. Garrod Hagerty for going for loose balls. He just wasn't there. Aaron Gallan at times wasn't there. And even in the defence when Dublin, and this is an area where Dublin could really, really trouble Cork if Cork are tuned in the full back line. Put Hedgehoe in the square. Put Sean Curry in and around them. They are going to get a lot of chances if they fire ball into the square. But that is an onus as well on Owen Downey, Sean O'Donoghue, and whoever's going to play at the 2 position, whether that be Niall O'Leary or Ger Millerick. It's going to be a big. The Cork full back line have to have a big game in this one if they are to prevent the shock in many ways. So it is going to be very, very interesting to see. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think it's simple as this from a Cork point of view: up the intensity.
Yeah, absolutely. You need to at least match. Look, there is a possibility because of how good some of the players that you have, and some of the attacking sort of quality in terms of goals and the ferociousness that Cork can bring. Like, there is a possibility that you could still win the game without that intensity. I mean, we saw like Limerick, by all accounts, were miles off it, and they were only a couple of points in it, kind of in the end, like towards the end of the game, and that was Dublin at their best, obviously with a man less. So I think that's the minimum probably from a Cork perspective. I think that will be a big thing for Dublin as well, is to bring that ferociousness, especially defensively as well. Like the last day, Conor McHugh, I thought had the game of his life. John Bellew, Paddy Smith, and even like looking at some of those Cork forwards that you'll have there, in the likes of Alan Connolly, Brian Hayes, Shane Barra. I mean, would you expect those forwards to outdo some of Dublin's defenders? I mean, Pat Horgan will probably start as well. German Healy, I'd be interested to get your opinion on. Does he start after a very good appearance versus Limerick? So, I mean, there's a lot for Dublin to handle, but again, we had a lot to handle against Limerick, and we managed to see it out. Albeit, look, Limerick's forwards certainly didn't have their best game. There's no question about that. They were a good bit off it. But that's going to be a very interesting battle.
It is, to be fair. And to be fair, Dublin, they have kept 3 clean sheets in a row against Galway, Kildare, and Limerick. But to be fair, I know Kildare did very, very well in the Joe McDonagh Cup, but you probably can't count that in this level of hurling. Antrim, they kept a clean sheet as well. But they conceded 2 goals against Offaly, 4 against Wexford, and a game I watched last night in detail in preparing, for statistics on this was the game against Kilkenny. And Kilkenny absolutely tore your defence apart in the first half, in particular, scoring 4 goals. Every time the ball went in around Paddy Smith's area or John Bellew, Kilkenny were there to pounce. Mossy Keown, Adrian Mullen was there as well. TJ Reid scored a bit of a soft goal that day in Nolan Park as well. I think it was simplistic as this from a Kilkenny point of view as well. They upped the intensity and they blew Dublin out of the water in the first half. But then they dropped the intensity in the second half and Dublin started coming back into the game. There was 2 points in it or 1 point in it at one stage until Billy Ryan's goal in that game. So Cork have to take some learnings out of that game and replicate it throughout the entire game. Because even if Cork are so far ahead, like Kilkenny were in Nolan Park that day, Dublin are going to come back. They're not going to lie down. So Cork have to keep going. They have to keep the foot in the throat and keep on going in terms of that. Look at our scores, like Patrick Horgan, obviously our top scorer with 3 goals and 42 points. Brian Hayes with 3 goals and 7 points. It'll be interesting from a Dublin point of view who goes on him. Will it be Bellew, Paddy Smith? It is going to be very, very interesting from a Dublin point of view there. Obviously, it's a big miss, actually. Our third top scorer in the championship, Seamus Hartney, is actually out for this game. He has a hamstring injury. He scored 13 points in the championship, so that is a big blow for Cork. I know he's one of the elder statesmen at this present moment in time, along with Hoggy, but he has been performing very, very well this year, Seamus Hartney. So that's a lot of bonus of the likes of Shane Barrett, who scored 1 goal and 9 points. Decky Dawson, 1 goal and 7 points, who's coming back to full fitness, by the way. Dar Fitzgibbon hasn't hit the heights that he did last year, and that's what I'm talking about with this Cork team. It's kind of a weird one. Last year, we were hitting so many heights last season. But this season, it doesn't seem that way at this present moment in time. Maybe they're kind of easing their way until we reach Crow Park levels. Maybe it's that. I'm not entirely sure in terms of that. But yeah, it should be very, very interesting in terms of that. Obviously, Alan Connolly with 1 goal and 7 points. Tim O'Mahony has 1 goal and 3. You mentioned Dudsey there, Dudsey Healy, 4 points. Obviously, he scored a lot of them against Limerick in the Munster final. Another interesting one, obviously, Connerly had Robbie O'Flynn. They probably come off the bench at some time as well. It'll be very interesting. I think we talk about our attack, but who's going to start in defence at the cornerback position? Because Niall O'Leary wasn't fully fit against Limerick, and Pat Ryan did the right thing in obviously keeping him in reserve on the bench. Joe Miller was injured last time against Limerick, but against Waterford, he was my man of the match anyway. He was absolutely superb at cleaning up ball, at starting attacks from deep. I thought he was absolutely superb. But then again, Damien Callan was very good the last day against Limerick. So Pat Ryan has a decision on his hands. The team will be named at 10 a.m. tonight, or 10 p.m. should I say tonight. So it should be interesting to see who Pat names in the full backline alongside Downey and Sean O'Donoghue. So yeah, a lot of interesting calls there in terms of the forward line as well. Who's going to come in for Harney? You would imagine Barrett will start. I'd say Dalton probably will start if he's fully fit. And then genuinely you could have Dudsey in at number 12, I'd say. And then the full forwards, it probably picks itself at Hoggy, Connolly and Brian Hayes. But yeah, should be an interesting enough team selection from Pat Ryan, not just at the forwards, but at the defence as well, in terms of that cornerback position.
Yeah, Liam says here, up the Rebels, time to stand up, lads, and drive it on. And what will be a tough away game to Dublin, up the Rebels. Well, it's neutral stadium. It is look. Dublin footballers play their home games at Crow Park, but the Dublin hurlers.
Aaron, no excuse. Dublin are sleeping in their home beds the night before the game. Cork have to sleep in a hotel. Come on now.
Come on now. Parnell Park is the home of the Dublin hurlers, but for the footballers, yeah, Crow Park is the home there. But there we are. Sean says it feels like Clare last year with Cork, in the sense that I felt Clare were better in 22-23 than last year.
Good point.
Yeah, like it feels like maybe the pressure was off a little bit more so last year, and you were kind of not an unknown quantity, but we hadn't seen Cork play like that in a long time. Do you know what I mean? When you sort of produce that performance against Limerick. But yeah, in terms of Dublin though, like it is an interesting one. Smart Parent says here, if Heatherton plays like he did against Limerick, he could cause the Cork defence real trouble. Does he start? It's going to be the interesting one though. He hasn't started a lot of games, and he kind of has been the impact sub. He's been the man to lump on, just hit it into the square. He'll get on the end of it. Brilliant at winning ball, brilliant at getting on the end of goals. But I think he has to start for the chaos that he can cause and the problems that he can cause. And in my opinion, when he's in the form that he has been in this year, you have to play him. But from your perspective as a Cork fan, like what are the areas that you're looking at from Dublin and thinking they could hurt us here? And if Dublin are to win on Saturday and produce, a first win against Cork in almost 100 years, what will they need to do you think?
I think in their forward division, they need their forwards to be on form. Looking at the top scores from a Dublin point of view, the two top marksmen, Sean Curry, 4 goals and 61 points. Like he is taking a lot of frees this year. Obviously, Donald Burke has not played as much for Dublin, and he's taken up the mantle from his club teammate in Davina, and he's done absolutely outstanding for Davina and for Dublin this season. So he'll have a big game. He has to take every free. I know it's a cliche with the underdog, but Sean Curry has to take every free to trouble this Cork side. Another guy, actually, the second top scorer you have, Cian O'Sullivan, with 3 goals and 17 points from play. Bit of a fact, his family originates from Ahaley's in Beara in West Cork. Cian O'Sullivan. He's a cousin of Anya Terry O'Sullivan, who's a forward in the Cork LGFA team. So like it or not, we're claiming Cian O'Sullivan's brilliance. It comes from down Beara. It doesn't come in Dublin. So look, you could see why he scored 3 goals and 17 points. His family's where his older family's based in West Cork. That's why he's excelling. But look, all jokes aside, he is a very good player. Obviously, scored a brilliant goal against Limerick as well, and that's a fella that Cork need to keep tabs on. Ronan Hayes as well, another interesting guy. Will he start? 3 goals and 6 points in the games for Dublin this year. Third top scorer, John Heatherton, obviously, as we mentioned, 3 goals and 5 points. Brian Hayes, 12 points around the middle of the park. A very big miss from a Dublin point of view, actually, and he's the next top scorer jointly. Chris Crummy with 10 points. As of now, he's suspended for this game. That is a huge miss for Dublin. I think in terms of drives the team on from centre-back, I know Dublin did absolutely outstanding without him on the pitch against Limerick for the rest of the game. But like it or not, Aaron, he's an experienced head. That's going to be a big miss for Dublin. And he is a very, very good hurler as well. I think having Green McBride back won the panel this year is a massive boost. I've always been a fan of him around the middle of the park. He's got 1-7 in the championship already as well. Will be interesting, actually. Conor Burke with 9 points as well, another brilliant player around the middle of the park. Another interesting kind of one, Aaron. Conor Donoghue, he did get suspended against Galway for that, obviously, choke tackle in Parnell Park. I'd imagine his suspension is up, I think. So does he start this game? 9 points from play across all the games for Dublin this year. And bear in mind, he did get suspended for a few of those as well. So interesting calls there to make in terms of who replaces Chris Crummy. Will Ronan Hayes or John Heatherton start? And does Conor Donoghue start? I'll actually throw that back to you, but it's very interesting points there, all the points there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think Conor Donoghue, yeah, I'd absolutely bring him in. No question about that. I think he's proved his capabilities this year. I think for John Heatherton though, yeah, absolutely he has to start. Absolutely, you need to throw him in at full forward. In my opinion, and yeah, but I think we've saw the damage obviously that he's done. I think another interesting one when you're mentioning Cian O'Sullivan playing for or having connections to Cork, a man who maybe could come in as well as Dara Power, and interesting enough, he is a Kerry man. So he's actually, you know what I mean? So we could have a Cork man and a Kerry man potentially doing the damage against the Rebels. They could be teaming up on you there.
Yeah, jeez, that's one I didn't know. No, Dara Power, Kerry man, Jesus.
Yeah. Whether he's actually from Kerry, I'm not sure, but I do know he's got connections from Kerry anyway, or I think he went to school there or something like that.
Yeah, I'd imagine. I would be shocked in all honesty, because like we all know Ryan O'Dwyer from Tipperary actually played with Dublin for years. So look, actually another Cork guy, he's in and around the panel for Dublin in the last few years. He's not there this year, as far as I could see. Chris O'Leary from Shannon in Cork. I don't know, is he in and around the Dublin panel? Is he? He's not going to come in, is he?
No, I don't. I couldn't imagine so anyway. But yeah, look, I think for Dublin to win this game, they need probably the best performance. Look, it needs to be even better than Limerick. Like, there was a few chances in the first half where Dublin were putting chances wide, they were putting opportunities wide, and you were kind of looking at it and thinking this could come back to haunt Dublin here, and it didn't in the end. We got over the line. We found a way to make it work. In the second half, or going in against Cork, though, we have to take our chances. It needs to be the greatest performance, above all other levels. And then we probably will need Cork to drop off a little bit. But as you said, you're looking for a big performance from Sean Curry, Ray McBride, our own version of Brian Hayes in midfield, Conor Burke obviously as well, who's been outstanding. Will be interesting to see Donald Burke kind of slowly coming back into the fold. Don't think he's starting for this game, but again, he's a good option to have maybe towards the last kind of 15 to 20 minutes. So it's huge for Dublin. And saying that, though, I think one thing Limerick didn't really do enough against Dublin was go for goals. They didn't work goals. They didn't work goal chances. Limerick do that quite a lot, to be fair, where they don't really work goals. I look at the way Kilkenny have often cut through us at times in terms of getting goals, and that is the big worry, is that I think Cork could have a spell in this game for 10, 15, 20 minutes where they just take the game away from us. And unfortunately for Dublin, we've been in, that has happened to us quite often in games versus Kilkenny, and you could see Cork doing the same. So, my heart obviously says that we can do it. My head, not so much. I think Cork probably will be too strong and probably win out by 7 or 8. But in terms of prediction, what are you thinking?
I think ultimately, I don't think it's an unpopular thing to say. I think Cork will win the game. But I think it'll be tighter than people think, because you look at Dublin's statistics so far in terms of they've improved on their shot. I know in some aspects of the Limerick game they were poor, but I even look at the Kilkenny game, their shooting accuracy was 68% in Nolan Park. Dublin have the capabilities to up their shooting stats without a doubt. I think this will be closer than people think genuinely. I'm going to say Cork by 4, but if we're not on it from the first war goal, then it's going to be a very, very difficult afternoon, I'll imagine.
Yeah, Sean says here, will Donald Burke start? He's one of their talisman, but hasn't played a lot this year due to injury. I don't think so, to be honest with you. I think it's who comes out. Could maybe be the kind of the issue there. Even looking at it here. Yeah, I think you probably do bring Donald Burke on, if you need him for the final 20 minutes. But he has had injury issues at different stages this year and has kind of dropped in and out. A2 says we need to keep their door shut. A couple of first half goals, they'll kill us. And A2 says Cork by 5, 8 points. But the lads will do us proud, as they already have it this year. Who do you reckon will be man of the match?
I'm going to say Cork win the game, so I'm going to say Shane Barrett. I think he has potential to explode this year, and I think this is the game where he does do well, in fairness. So I'm going to go Shane Barrett man of the match. But in terms of Dublin forwards where Donald Burke could come in for, I look at the Limerick programme here: Fergal Whiteley, Ronan Hayes, Derno Dooling. Any of those three?
Yeah, maybe O'Dooling, to be fair. He could come in for him. That could be a player maybe he comes in for. But it'll just depend on fitness, because I know he has been in and out with fitness issues and everything else. So it might be a bit of a risk to play him. But if look at, he got a bit of game time, to be fair. And he is a man that can stick frees and everything else. But it'll just be that rustiness, especially in a game like this with the sharpness, the intensity. If Dublin need to be fully at it, and it's one of them. I'd rather him coming in towards the end of the game rather than starting and then the intensity dying a little bit. But look, obviously for O'Callaghan, we'll see. He obviously sees the players train. He'll make the kind of final judgments in regards to that. But yeah, in terms of man of the match, look, I think from a Dublin perspective, I think Conor Burke could be absolutely huge in around the middle if Dublin are to come through it. And yeah, in terms of the hurlers, or in terms of Cork, you probably will be looking at goals that I think could be really key here. I know Alan Connolly, would I be right in saying that he maybe hasn't set the world alight this year in comparison to last year, where he was backing goals left, right, and centre? But I do look at a player like him, or maybe Brian Hayes, or especially Croke Park. Like we saw even with the footballers last week, where Sean O'Shea is an example. In Croke Park, some players come alive, and I think a player like Alan Connolly could. I just worry in terms of conceding goals, and maybe it could be Fitzgibbon overlapping or something of that nature, maybe as well, that could really do damage.
Yeah, I'm looking at Cork's goal scorers now. 4 players have 1 goal in the championship so far: Barrett, Connolly, Dalton, and Tim O'Malley. And then Hoggy and Brian Hayes both have 3 each. So I think those are the 2 guys when you look at goals. You wouldn't have thought Hoggy. I know Hoggy's been legend for Cork down through the years, but to be fair, his goal return is very, very good so far this year.
Yeah. Was that a few penalties, or is it from play?
One from a free against Limerick, the other 2 from play against Waterford and Tip.
There you go. So, Acer says Cork will destroy Dublin by scoring at least 4 goals, and 90% of Cork supporters in Croke Park on Saturday night. Yeah, it'll absolutely be some buzz around the city. There's no doubt about that one. So there we go. We're both predicting Cork to win the game. Kilkenny versus Tipperary is the game on the Sunday. And again, it's a lot of people were expecting it to be Kilkenny Limerick and Tipperary to play Cork. So it's a different kind of, maybe a bit of different preparation maybe for Kilkenny and everything else. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because Tipperary are sort of the unknown quantity a little bit in terms of they haven't played in Croke Park, in a hurling championship game, or obviously some of the younger lads have, but in terms of the seniors, they haven't played in Croke Park since 2019. Kilkenny have obviously been here numerous times before. Kilkenny are the more experienced team in terms of getting over the line in these games, with the likes of Owen Cody, Adrian Mullen, John Donnelly. But it is actually Tipperary, coincidentally, the last time these 2 played each other, that won. And Tipperary actually probably have more All-Ireland winners in their side as well. So it's an interesting one. You've got some older heads on both teams, so some younger heads on both teams as well. It's a hard one to call this. It's what way would you be thinking for this?
It's a very interesting one, and we're going back to the old days with this one. Obviously, the rivalry that Kilkenny and Tip had. We talk about Cork and Limerick. We talk about the football side, Dublin Mayo, Dublin Kerry. This rivalry, when I was growing up watching hurling, was box office. When you look at 2009, Liam Sheedy managing Tipperary, trying to stop the forward row, but then Henry Shefflin and Comerford get the goals to drag them out of jail that day. In 2010, obviously, Lara Corbett scoring a hat-trick. Who could forget that? And obviously, Henry Shefflin going off after 15 or 20 minutes. And that was a bad decision. One of just a few bad decisions from Brian Cody, to be honest, in his long, long career. 2011, obviously, Michael Fennelly around midfield had the game. Richie Hogan scored an absolute superb goal in Croke Park, and Kilkenny win that game. Then in 2012, Lara Corbett goes from scoring a hat-trick in 2010 to then trying to stalk Tommy Walsh around the pitch in 2012. I don't know, do people remember that? The games down in Nolan Park in 2013, even the final in 2019 when Richie Hogan got sent off, and there was mesmerising performances for Tip that day as well. In Liam Sheedy winning the All-Ireland for Tipperary. It is like that sort of history is a great valve with this rivalry, and hopefully it will reignite this Sunday, no doubt about that. But what I will say, I think generally across the media, a lot of people are writing off Tipperary, and I don't know why. I genuinely don't know why, because when you look at their winning margin, they have an average winning margin of 4 points, and the majority of those games would have been neck and neck going into the game, if you know what I mean. Either Munster Championship or the game against Galway. Okay, the game against Laois was an outlier, but they beat Galway by what was it? They beat Galway by 8 points, and it could have been a lot more.
Yeah.
And I did say, after that Galway game with Tip and Galway, Dublin beating Limerick was a brilliant win for Dublin. And everybody was talking about Dublin hurling and saying, "Oh, this is absolutely brilliant for Leinster hurling," and Dublin hurling is right in the rise. And it was. The Dublin deserved that win and was brilliant. But the real winners, I thought, was Tipperary, because nobody's talking about them at all.
Yeah.
After that performance against Galway, to beat them as comfortably as they did, and nobody is batting an eyelid at all. When you look at the performances they're giving at the moment, when you look at their forwards form at the moment, like when you look at some of their forward scores, like their top 5 scores at the moment in the championship: Jason Ford, 2 goals and 39 points; Darragh McCarthy, 31 points; John McGrath, 4 goals and 12 points; Andrew Ormond, one of the stars of the championship so far, 2 goals and 13 points; Jake Morris, 18 points. And add into the fact as well, Owen Connolly from fullback with 10 points. Like, Tipperary are actually doing very, very well up in the forward division as well. And they've done it out throughout the course of the season, but they found these gems of forwards throughout the season, no doubt about it. Even the likes of Shawnee Kennedy, who scored a brilliant goal in the league against Limerick, he's only got 2 points in the championship. So there's a potential, if he comes off the bench, to trouble the Kilkenny defence. You look at players as well like Oisin O'Donoghue, who I mentioned, 2 crucial goals in the championship against Waterford and against Galway. He's definitely a star to be reckoned with in the championship so far as well. I see Paddy McCormick after the under-20 exploits. He's coming into the panel. You look at Sam O'Farrell, Oisin O'Donoghue and Darragh McCarthy are all under-20 All-Ireland champions this year. So there's a lot of experience in winning trophies as well. So, and all 3 of them have performed well for the seniors. Sam O'Farrell has been one of the finds of the year, in my opinion. Darragh McCarthy has been brilliant with frees. And I know that's simplistic to say, but Tipperary weren't good at frees last year. They had 1 week it's Jason Ford, another week it's Garrett O'Connor, another week potentially Noel McGrath might take a few. And Tipperary weren't consistent on the frees. But you look at this year, whether it be Darragh McCarthy or Jason Ford, they've been deadly awkward with the frees. And even when you look at Jason Ford, his sidelines are absolutely immaculate too. So they have done well on the simplistic things this year, and they're goal getting as well. Ford's got 2 goals. John McGrath, if he's let off the leash, Kilkenny will be in massive bother. Andrew Ormond with 2 goals as well. He's really excelled, obviously, to 2 goals against Clare, but he's added 13 points to his resume as well. Sam O'Farrell's got in and scoring act this season too. Like, I feel like Tipperary are doing well this season, and not a lot of people are talking about it. They drew against Limerick. A lot of people talk about Dublin beating Limerick, and rightly so. Tip drew against Limerick and probably should have beat them in the Munster Championship. When you look at it in the cold light of day, Tipperary had only 1 bad performance in this championship, and let's be honest, it was the game that was over before it already started with the Darragh McCarthy red card. As soon as that happened against Cork, that was it. Like, I think Kip were kind of playing for pride on that day as well. What I do think Kilkenny have performed well in defence and in attack as well. There are some very good scorers. Hugh Lawler's been immense in the full back line. He was absolutely incredible against Galway. To an extent, Galway were probably playing into Hugh Lawler's hands, but obviously, like, we'll see what happens now on Sunday, whether Tip will have more of a kind of a difference in their tactic. Will they play some balls long into the square? Will they play some of them right into the corner forwards position? We'll have to see what happens. But the general bottom line is, Aaron, I don't know what you think yourself. I think a lot of people are sleeping on Tipperary, and it's not wise.
Yeah, A2 says Tip are always good for an All-Ireland every few years. They could do a clear and sneak into the back door when everyone expects Cork to win it. Yeah, they definitely have gone under the radar, and I think it's probably because, like what you said, there's a lot of hype probably around Cork, like the huge amount of support that they have. Obviously, Limerick have been Limerick. What Dublin did overshadowed and took all the headlines and everything else. And no matter what else happened that day, that was going to be the big headline. And I feel like even as well, though, like it's, a lot of Tipperary fans probably haven't fully bought into this Tipperary team. I think they're coming around to it now, but earlier in the year, I don't think they were. And maybe it's a case of how poor the last couple of years have been. Like last year under Liam Cahill. Like, let's not forget, this time last year, there was people talking about Liam Cahill not coming back to Tipperary. There's people talking about new managers, and maybe Liam Sheedy coming back and everything else, and changes of the guard. You know, and Liam Cahill's done phenomenal to turn it around. And I think it's one of them where we haven't seen them in Croke Park since 2019. And there's probably a lot of maybe neutrals and everything else that haven't got to see Tipperary play too often, because they haven't been in that many huge games over the last couple of years. So it's huge, and especially for the younger lads like the likes of your Darren McCarthy's, Aid Norman, these lads, like this, absolutely huge for some of these players, and the older guard as well. Faithful podcast was saying here, Kilkenny, I feel, will have a plan up their sleeve. They always do, the cats. They're cute. They're a bit like Kerry. They just come out of woodwork when you least expect it. And yeah, everyone make sure to check out the Faithful podcast as well. That's our good friend Liam White, who we've seen on the show before, started his own podcast and all things Offaly as well. So if you're from Offaly as well, even more of a reason to go and check that one out. And even speaking of Kilkenny, there was some interesting comments here that probably summed up Kilkenny quite well. Sean said Kilkenny are going really under the radar, which reminds me of how Kerry were written off last week. And then on the opposite side, Dublin is great, says this is the worst Kilkenny team in the last 60 years. So two complete opposite opinions there in regards to Kilkenny. And I thought I'd highlight both of them because it probably sums up the way people are thinking about Kilkenny, where like Tipperary are being wrote off, but Kilkenny are being wrote off as well. And look, one of them has to win on Sunday. One of them has to go to an All-Ireland final. Like with Kilkenny, we know the talent is there, we know the players are there, but it's one of them where we kind of know what they have to offer at this stage. I don't think they can throw us anything different than what we've already seen. Whereas Tipperary do have that capability to give us something a little bit different. So what have been your opinions and thoughts on Kilkenny? And are they maybe going under the radar a little bit as well?
Potentially so, yeah. It was really, really hard to judge them against Galway in the Leinster final. It really wasn't an hour, because at most stages, actually, the first 50, 55 minutes, Galway were playing right into Kilkenny's hands. They were playing Conor Whelan around the middle of the pitch. They were looping high balls at Hugh Lauder just straight into the palm. And Hugh Lauder was exceptional, but like he wasn't getting tested at all when you look at the long balls coming in. And what I've noticed about Kilkenny in this championship, but this is all you can notice about them. When they're going through a bad patch, there's a lapse in concentration there. Like against Galway, when Brian Concannon hits the back of the net, like Owen Murphy even was frustrated at that point. How did we could see the goal? We were so dominant in this game. The Dublin game is a prime example in Nolan Park, as we mentioned before the chat. Kilkenny were so far ahead at halftime, it was ridiculous. Then Dublin started to fire in a few goals, and Kilkenny just didn't know how to slow down that momentum. And then ultimately Billy Ryan gets the goal and they get out of jail. So it's very, very hard to judge Kilkenny at the moment. The game against Wexford was a dead rubber because no one had anything to play for. The Offaly game, again, they dominated much that game without much fuss. And against Antrim, again, like there wasn't much of an onus on that game either. So the only two games you could really judge Kilkenny's season so far are probably the game against Galway in the Leinster final and the Dublin game in Nolan Park. And judging by two of those games, when there's a serious lapse in concentration, a team can seriously get a bit of momentum and drive it on. Yeah. So that would be my concern with Kilkenny. But then again, is there an argument to say, other than Dublin, who have proven to be an actual very, very good side at the moment, is there any team that have proven to be a tough, sticky opposition yet from a Kilkenny point of view when you look at it? Because Wexford had nothing to play for. Galway, we've seen them this year. Not much, and they didn't offer much in the Leinster final, let's be honest, either. It's a tough one to judge, Kilkenny, really is.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned that against Clare last year in the All-Ireland semi-final as well. Like, let's not forget, they were comfortable at half-time, and in the second half, they kind of just fell apart. So and it's happened quite a lot against Dublin, where although we haven't beaten them since 2013 in the championship, like we've had a lot of games where they've had a big lead and we've nearly clawed them back. So they do seem to have those kind of moments, and it'll be interesting to see if Derek Lane can kind of iron them out maybe come Sunday. But Yeah, like Sean says here, on Cody being back for Kilkenny could be a game changer. And Rudder says here, as a Cork man, who would Matthew rather play? That is an interesting one, isn't it? Because you have a good record. Like, I think Tipperary are probably, like, I do think Tipperary will win this weekend. I do think they're the slightly better team in my opinion. But I feel like you'd probably nearly rather play Tipperary than Kilkenny, would you? Because Kilkenny have had a good record against you in recent years, and they're one of them teams that can find something from somewhere. A bit like, I don't know if it's the heritage thing, a little bit like Kerry at times with the footballers. But I'll let you answer the question.
I tend to disagree, Aaron. I'd actually rather play Kilkenny than Tip. And like Kilkenny haven't been tested yet. There is that element in their game that they switch off as well, which is it is concerning from a Kilkenny point of view. It's positive for the opposition's point of view. Whereas we played Tip this year twice already, or 3 times already. And Tip, like the first game, Tip actually beat us in Thurles, but then the next 2 games we've run asunder on them. And I feel like Tip, if they were to play us a 4th time, I think there's some revenge in their minds to even up the score. Well, not to even up the score, to obviously win the score, to win the All-Ireland. So I think there'd be more vengeance in Tipperary minds than potentially Kilkenny. The Kilkenny are the unknown. You don't know what to get with them. Whereas with Tip, you're going to get a fierce battle in the final.
Yeah.
So, and our record against Munster teams in the All-Ireland final hasn't been great. Like the last 3 finals we've been in, we played Munster teams and we lost all 3. So I think, to answer your question, I'd rather play Kilkenny than Tip. Might be an unpopular opinion, but there you go.
Yeah, A2 says Tip scoring power is obscene. They're hitting 40 plus shots a game. Where do you think the game is won and lost then? What do you think will be, I suppose, the deciding factors in the game?
There's so many aspects where these 2 sides are even. Both sides are written off. Both sides have decent enough full back lines that are well capable of quelling any attack. And both sides have attackers that are absolutely lethal. I looked at Tipperary scores there. Kilkenny scores, TJ Reid has 5 goals and 26 points. Mossy Jones, 6 goals and 9 points. And while I'm on him, he's having an incredible year for play in the league and the championship. And is definitely, in terms of all-stars right now, I think he's definitely up there in terms of us, in terms of goal getting. Owen Cody, we've mentioned him there, coming back from injury. Even with the injury, he still has 2 goals and 18 points in the championship. So he still has a lot of scores in the bag. Billy Ryan, 2 goals and 13 points. Adrian Mullen, 3 goals and 5. Stephen Donnelly and Keane Kenny, 12 each. So they do have scoring power of their own, Kilkenny, as well as Tip. So it's that aspect. It is very, very difficult to call all that in fairness. But as the comment says, they are Tips and shooting. They get about 40 plus shots away a game. It is very, very difficult to defend at times, in my opinion, as well. Even at the game against Dublin, for Kilkenny and Nolan Park, Kilkenny had 36 shots, they had 66% shot accuracy, very even on the turnovers. They won most of their puck outs, 68%, but that's more so with Dublin. And what I noticed with Dublin, they kind of retreat on the puck outs and leave the team puck the ball short. So I think genuinely we could have a game where we're going to have 2 teams that like to puck the ball short in many ways. So could this be a boring enough game? I'm not sure, but that would probably be the name of the game for both sides. But in terms of winning and losing battles, I think genuinely, and again it's simplistic, I think whoever does well defensively and attack wise is going to win the game. If Hugh Lawler has a barn burner of a game, I think Kilkenny will go a long way to winning it. If John McGrath pucks a few goals at the back of the net, I think Tip have a massive chance. So it is going to be an interesting one to call.
Yeah. It does have the makings of that kind of game, maybe a bit of a cagey game, bit of nerves, a couple of wides and everything else. Like, could the experience stand to Kilkenny a little bit, do you think, of being in Croke Park more often than the Tipperary side, and being in these games a little bit more? Could that stand to them, do you think?
Possibly so. But But then again, that All-Ireland semi-final from a Kilkenny point of view will be lingering at the back of their minds too. That game against Clare, where, as you mentioned correctly, they were so comfortable at halftime and they let the lead slip somehow. Like, I have this kind of feeling if Kilkenny, and I talk about intensity so many times, but it genuinely does come down to that. If Kilkenny don't have as much intensity like they showed last year against Clare, I think Tip could be ready to pounce. So I think Tip could win this by about 3 or 4, because I think they have the capabilities to up their work rate. And Kilkenny at some stages, from what I've seen so far and what I've seen in the All-Ireland semi-final last year, I'm not so sure they can up their intensity when needed.
Yeah, so you're back in Tipperary by 3 or 4. I'm going to say Tipperary by a point, but I'm going to say after extra time. I think it will go down to the to the absolute smallest of margins. In terms of man of the match, I probably would go with Andy Ormond. I think I have a funny feeling in Croke Park he could deliver an absolute classic of a performance as well. But at the same time, I wouldn't sleep on like a John McGrath or something like that to roll back the years in Croke Park and kind of, you know, like what we've seen with Tony Kelly and Clare, really deliver in a big game to kind of drag his county over the line. But what would you be thinking in terms of man of the match?
I'm going to go not the goal scorer, but the lethal point scorer, Jake Morris. I'm going to go in for man of the match. I've been really impressed with him this year. And a lot of people kind of sleep on Jake Morris and don't rank him as one of the best hurlers in the country. Believe it, lads, he is. He's a really tidy forward in the Tip team and probably one of the most consistent Tip forwards over the last few years. So I'm going to go Jake Morris as my man of the match.
Well, there we go. So you've heard the predictions. Both of us back in Tipperary and Cork to come through both this weekend's All-Ireland semi-finals. Look, I hope I'm wrong. I hope Dublin can pull it out of the bag. It would be absolutely incredible if we did it. And look, I've been wrong about numerous Dublin predictions in the past, so hopefully that trend can continue. Cheers anyone who tuned in. If you could hit the like button and subscribe, it would be very much appreciated. Feel free to check out Matthew's channel as well, the Gaelic Statsman. You can find it on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, absolutely everywhere. So make sure to check that out when you get a chance. And yeah, until the next one, we'll speak to you all later.